The Anvils of Heldenhammer are by far one of the most interesting Stormhost lore-wise. If you're not familiar, I'll give you a brief synopsis in a moment, but the reason I wanted to dive into their lore again was because of a White Dwarf article that came out in this month. In this article and today, we're going to explore one of the sacrosanct chambers of the Anvils of Heldenhammer, the Sempiternals, who we meet in a few places, including the Siege of Lethis and also Gloom's Forge, which was the basis of Soul Wars. I did a full video explaining the defense and fall of Lethis, which you can find in the description down below, and I'm excited that they're shining a light on such a great story. So today we're going to talk about these Sempiternals, and in another video we'll cover the Lord Arcanum of that chamber as well as his lieutenants. So backing up for a minute, what makes the Anvils of Heldenhammer so unique? Well, more than any other Stormcast Eternal, their mortal origins are what set them apart. For most other Stormcast, Sigmar plucked up heroes fighting chaos in the Age of Chaos, divided them up into Stormhosts based on their skills and temperaments and disposition. So for example, like the most religiously faithful became Hallowed Knights, and the ones focused on personal vengeance became Celestial Vindicators, but at the core, they all died roughly around the same time. But that is not so for the Anvils of Heldenhammer. When Sigmar was looking for the best and the brightest souls to forge his living weapons, he did not limit himself to those who were actively fighting or dying. See, while Nagash was recovering from his fight with Archaon during the Age of Chaos, Sigmar reached into Shyish and stole the souls of heroes past. Mighty warriors who never saw the touch of chaos. They could have lived and been great conquerors in the Age of Myth and then died before chaos ever even entered the picture. These are truly ancient minds, and they were forged anew. Now this has some big implications here, right? The first one being they lived full lives, and while many Stormcast are motivated by tragic loss of their own lives and everything that they love, these heroes in Anvils of Heldenhammer might have been righteous kings who were really good people, great at warfare, and died happily at an old age, right? And that age gives them this kind of chilling perspective, right? A sense of mortality the others do not have. It also means that they see everything they've built, right? These great, civilizations just built up, and all of a sudden it's all turned to ash. Those mighty empire builders will see nothing but dust. And I think psychologically that has to do something to you. For me, obviously, it would be very disheartening to know that you worked so hard in your life and none of that really mattered. That everything you might have worked for wasn't destroyed by chaos, but maybe just the ravages of time, right? That could easily cause an existential crisis for you. And the second big kind of implication from that is that they have felt that near eternal sleep of death and are tied to Shyish. There's something about the realm of death that calls to them, but also horrifies them. When Sigmar plucked these heroes up, they were like wandering shades, just ghosts wandering across the realm. They have those memories of this dark, existence, but also the memories of their mortal lives. So other Stormcast chambers have not tasted life and death the same way that they have. And that pull of death magic, its taste and essence, affects them more than any other chamber. And so that's kind of the overarching idea for Anvils of Heldenhammer, but let's talk about the Sempiternals specifically. I'll, in the link down below, you can find my coverage, like I said before, of the Siege of Lethis, where the storm vaults were revealed, and inside one of them was a presence that Nagash recognized from the past and wanted freed. It was in Shyish, in the city of Lethis, which also, fun fact, is the home base of the Anvils of Heldenhammer in the Realms. And their base was erected there to defend this storm vault, which is called the Midnight Tomb. And Forbidden Power follows the story of Lady Ollander as she crashed into the city to open it and the heroic defenses of the Stormcast there. It's a really cool battle, and I encourage you to check it out. Well, in that story, the Sempiternals make their mark. They are one of the many sacrosanct chambers of the Anvils of Heldenhammer. And if you don't know, sacrosanct chambers are responsible for a few things, the main one being reforging dead Stormcast Eternals. When their souls arc back to Azir, it's the sacrosanct chamber that reforges a new body for that soul. They're also tasked with preventing the degradation of those souls. Everyone in Azir knows about the flaw. And the flaw is the more Stormcast is reforged, weird things start to happen, personality quirks, they become weird and zealous, and they lose abilities and memories and identity and that kind of stuff. So this entire chamber is full of scholars and wizards and masters of the arcane, and they are basically tasked with figure out a way to stop that from happening, right? As I said before, they are masters of magics, particularly lightning magic, but they can indulge themselves in other stuff as well. And they are also collectors of magical artifacts, anything that might help them in their big mission. Now, they do appear in the defense of Glimsforge, which was the kind of main fight in the book Soul Wars by Josh Reynolds, but I feel like they took really the center stage in Forbidden Power, which is the expansion that came out with Storm Vaults and Endless Spells and mercenary companies, that kind of stuff. The chamber is led by Lord Arcanum Linus Galmorian and his most trusted lieutenants, and like I said, we'll do a separate video on them in the future, and more so than any other sacrosanct chamber, the leaders of this one are willing to pour out devastating magics on the battlefield. They'll just go further with that than others. Their heroes lead from the front in a tide of lightning, right? Beneath them, the rank and file of the chamber, like sequitors and evocators, are more likely to channel their magics inward, right? Empowering weapons and shields and stuff like that. So it's a very hero-centric kind of force where the heroes really do focus on using magic abilities rather than, combat specialists, things like that. In the Siege of Lethis kind of story arc, they were tasked with defending the Midnight Tomb, right? There are a whole bunch of Stormcast from the Anvils of Heldenhammer there to defend the city, but this Sacrosanct Chamber, was specifically tasked with defending the one singular door to the Storm Vault. And I'm going to spoil a few things here about that fight, right? The defense was going really well until the Fire Slayer allies betrayed the Stormcast, allowing the Death Armies into the city. Lady Olander and Kurdos wreck that place hard. They really do. They make their way to the heart of the city, to the Midnight Tomb. Lord Arcanum Linus Galmorian puts up a brilliant defense, right? And again, he's just trying to guard one door. He has a host of sequitors mostly with him, and it's a really cool scene where the forces of death are pushing them deeper and deeper into the Storm Vault itself. It's got a long kind of corridor that goes down to it, and as they're going backwards, they start using the artifacts that they're there to defend. Now remember, these artifacts are put there by Sigmar as stuff that no mortal should be allowed to wield, and so all of a sudden there's just a few of them, but their Hail Mary plan is to turn all of these artifacts on the Death Army. Unfortunately, there's just so many Night Haunt and skeletons and zombies. It's a grand army, and there just wasn't a chance. They keep getting pushed further and further back into the main chamber of the Storm Vault. And Linus is looking at all this going I'm realizing that there's no way he could possibly win. His last-ditch effort is he's going to charge Lady Olander and fight her in one-to-one combat. And the idea being, maybe if I take out, to cut off the head of the snake, the rest of their army will be shattered enough without leadership and coordination that we can figure it out from there, kind of thing. And so he goes to charge Lady Olander, but doesn't make it very far, because a Lord Executioner, as they're called, one of the generals or leaders of the Night Haunts, with a big hangman's noose on his back. That noose wraps around Galmorian's neck and rips him off of his Griff Charger, where a whole bunch of Blade Geist and Spirit Hosts just tear him to shreds, and he arcs back to his ear. It's probably one of the coolest deaths that I've read in a Black Library book, to be perfectly honest with you. Ultimately, the Sempiternals failed in their defense of the tomb, but not really entirely, right? The creature that was captured inside, which we still don't know what it is, it's a little frustrating, was freed. Nagash is happy. But the cost to the Death Army to make that happen was super great. They had lost all of their inertia charging into the city. So when the Stormcast allies arrived late, they were able to push away the forces and kind of shoo away Lady Olander. So, important to note here, the city still exists, right? The headquarters of the Anvils of Heldenhammer still exists, but the tomb itself was broken apart. So the Death Army won, but didn't kind of seal the deal by wiping everything out. And that's the last we really know about them. But of course, it's not where their story ends. Despite the overwhelming odds of defeat and the heroism of their defense, the Sempiternals view that act with shame. By that I mean they feel like personal failures because they couldn't defend the tomb enough. They seek to get back to Shyish and fight the armies of death once more, and Sigmar has granted that request. You see, the Necroquake, when it went off, it didn't just raise a bunch of dead, it also pushed back the kind of safe borders of the forces of order all across Shyish. I mean, realms everywhere, but mostly in Shyish. And Sigmar is eager to reclaim lost ground. So the Sempiternals are sent into the realm of death once more to push back Nagash's darkness. And this big pushback kind of coordinated effort to reclaim ground is called the Resurrection Crusade, and the Sempiternals are at the forefront of it. Now, what makes this cool? Like, why was it warranting of a White Dwarf article? Well, it's funny that I read Forbidden Power, but I didn't pick up on this chamber being there, right? Mostly in that book, they just call the Stormcast Eternals the Anvils of Heldenhammer, but I forgot that that's just the greater storm host, and that this is a specific chamber that was there, and it was pointed out by name multiple times. And upon rereading Forbidden Power, I got a sense of just how cool they were. Like this unwinnable defense, they're taking weapons and artifacts that Sigmar thought were too powerful for humans, and started using them like on the fly. Linus goes toe-to-toe with Lady Allender, but gets cut down before that in a most wicked way. And a little spoiler for what might be coming, I'm not sure, but the idea of this Resurrection Crusade, I love the name, right? I just love the name of it. It might be nothing, it might be like a future mini-series with Black Library, I don't know. But the idea, like this holy mission vibe that I really like. And when you combine that kind of holy quest with their unique origins and a chamber that focuses a lot on heroes, I think sets itself up to be really great for storytelling, right? Certainly some of the more interesting Stormcast Eternal books where identity is such a strong theme, and theirs is so unique, having character-driven dialogue and stuff like that, I think can really go a long way to making this chamber and then this storm host really, really fascinating. The information from this video came out in both Forbidden Power as well as the August 2019 White Dwarf, which if you're interested in this chamber, I really do suggest you grab because it has lore and rules for playing the Sempiternals. And I'll be doing a dedicated lore video for their Lord Arcanum, Linus Galmorian, and also his lieutenants. There's little lore blurbs about them as well. So I'll be doing that in the future, but I'm very excited they took the time to kind of flesh out some of these already existing chambers and things like that, and just adding more life to the stories they're already telling. And I'm really excited about the direction that things are going. I want to learn more about this Resurrection Crusade. It sounds so cool. Leave me your thoughts down below. I want to hear them about the way that White Dwarf is, releasing lore like this. Do you like the rules in there or something like that? Go ahead and start the conversation, and I'll see you there. Happy wargaming.